Welcome to the Rockabye Revenue Podcast with me, Abby Watson. I'm a mum of 4 and a business strategist, and I train people to become hypnobirthing teachers. In the last decade, I've built a thriving baby business that grew beyond my wildest dreams. This podcast is for you if you run a business or dream of running a business in the birth and baby industry. You want to change lives whilst making more money. I'm talking about creating sustainable income whilst being present for the people that matter most. I believe for our baby businesses to have the impact we desire, we must be rewarded. On this podcast, expect me to share actionable strategies without the jargon. I've been where you are. I've built a business while raising 4 little ones, and now I'm here to help you turn your passion into profit while creating the life you've always dreamed of. So let's get started. Hello, my lovely one. It is so great to be back in your ears with another podcast. And as you have probably read, this one today is actually about why, if you're not into networking, no big deal. It's no problem. Now, this podcast episode is inspired actually by a podcast that I listened to recently where someone hugely successful was being interviewed, and this person said that you'll never be successful, or words to this effect, you'll never be successful if you do not utilise networking. And it triggered me. It did. Because immediately, I've got a cat behind me, hopefully you can still hear me, triggered me because I am that person. I am that person that does not network. Yet, I'm pretty proud that I've got a really successful business. And I guess I'm dedicating this podcast to those of you that are listening and also feel a bit in the anti-networking crew. You know, it's not for you. It triggers anxiety. The thought of going to a networking event makes you want to cry into your pillow. It's dedicated to you. Also, if you are listening and you're like, I love a bit of networking, I'm using that in my business regularly. This podcast is also for you because I'm also going to be talking about some of the downsides of it that you might want to be mindful of in terms of if you do focus on it. Now, networking can be a fantastic tool. And I totally agree with the person on that podcast that said, you know, it's a great tool. I agree. And there's also loads of other great tools to build your business. And I do not believe that there is one single tool that is going to be great for us all. And that's why I'm so blooming glad there are so many different things that we can utilise. Because what might feel very exciting and fun and easy for me might not for you, you know? And I'm not saying we should only ever stick with things that feel easy and fun. But actually, yes, we should expand our comfort zones. But actually, didn't we go into business for this to feel good? Yeah, we want a great, successful business, but we want to enjoy the ride. Maybe the reason we don't want to be employed by someone else is because we had to do loads and loads of things that we hated, and we don't want to have that kind of pressure when we're running our own business. So that's why I'm here to talk about how actually, if networking isn't for you, no problem. There's a different path to success. So let's get started. Now, As I said earlier, I am not someone you will ever, well, I never say never, but you're highly, highly unlikely to bump into me at a networking event. As a massive introvert, someone that does struggle with social anxiety, the thought of walking into a room where I don't know anybody fills me with absolute dread. The thought of like showing up with the intention of like making connections, I don't know, for me it just feels really superficial and real, like, I don't know, like the people there that are talking to you, maybe there's some ulterior motive, I don't know, it just does not feel nice for me, my personal opinion. Okay, now I'm nearly a decade into my business, and you know, I've made it my career. You know, it really funds our life and it gives me so much flexibility around my family. And I've done that whilst not networking. So I really want you to hear that as much as some people will bang the drum for it and say it's an essential, it's not. Nothing is, you know? The people who tell you networking is an essential to business are either people that have massively benefited from it themselves, so really view like the value because that's been their personal experience, or they are selling networking experiences. Just like the person that tells you that you won't have success unless you have a business coach, it's no doubt someone who's experienced that themselves or is selling business coaching. The person who says that social media is the path to success is the person that no doubt that's been their experience or they are selling stuff to help you do it. That's one thing that I really want you to be mindful of, because when we come into this business world, we hear so many messages from different people. This is what you should be doing. This is what's going to lead to your success, you know? And sometimes we take that as gospel, you know, we really receive that as like, oh my gosh, yeah, they're so right. And they put up like a really like convincing argument, don't they? And we're like, yeah, they're totally right. And then it makes us really focus on that thing that might not actually be the right thing for us. Now, of course, when I'm talking about why networking isn't like the only way, I do feel very aware that I could pee people off with this, you know? And if you are listening and you are a big advocate for networking, or you are somebody who runs a business that's very much about networking, please hear me when I say I am not saying you are wrong. I'm not. What I am saying is there is no one thing that is going to work for everyone. And what I am saying is it's okay if something isn't for us. It doesn't mean that, you know, if networking isn't for us, like we're out of the game, you know, we're not going to make a success of this. We just need to try harder. We just need to push ourselves to do more networking, and then we will have the success. And whether we're talking about networking, whether we're talking about social media, whether we're talking about email marketing, that's not true. You know, what's the phrase? There's many ways to skin a cat. What a horrible phrase. But that's the same in business. There's so many ways, and it's totally okay to work with the things that feel best for you. Now, I'm not saying listen to this episode today and feel like this is your excuse to never venture into networking. Like, do give it a go, but also know that you are not a bad person. You are not a rubbish businesswoman if you are not into it. And I say that because I have heard that before. I have spoken to people that I've trained to be hypnobirthing teachers that are very like me, you know? They're introverts. It's probably why they're attracted to my training. They're very much like me. They're hugely passionate. They're very much all about their clients. And they couldn't think of anything worse than networking. And they look around the industry and they see really successful people doing amazing things. And they also notice that they seem really well connected, you know? It's other people in the industry that are commenting on their stuff like their friends. And it sends this message to us that that's how they got their success. And because I'm not doing that, I'm not going to be successful. Therefore, I should network. So let me talk for a little bit about some of the downsides of networking, because I definitely think, as much as my decision, and it's not really a decision, my thing of not really focusing on networking comes from like my personality of being pretty much an introvert. Like, I definitely see that there are some downsides to it, you know? And that's helped me see that maybe I'm not missing out massively. So firstly, networking is very time consuming in some cases. You know, if you're trying to be at lots of local events, if you're trying to go to groups, meet people for coffee, it's very time consuming with no like certain outcome. Now, of course, in business, there's very rarely certain outcomes. But certainly for me, in my years of running my business, my time to focus on my business has been limited. If I give a whole day to go to an event solely for networking, what could I be missing out on doing in that time? Time is valuable. So it absolutely can be time consuming. It can be very superficial. You know, for some people, and I've definitely heard people have experiences of this, they can be burnt, you know? There can be downsides. They can really feel like they've made a connection with someone for it to then feel very one-sided, you know? And that person, you know, very much, you know, benefits from you promoting their business, but it's not returned. And that can feel more than a bit of a waste of time. It can feel quite personal. And that doesn't always feel good. But really importantly, like if we are really focusing on networking, we can sometimes lose sight of only connecting and collaborating with people that are truly aligned with what we offer and our values. So I've seen this so many times when, you know, people meet at events and they do some kind of collaboration together and it doesn't really work. Again, like loads of time has been spent on it, but actually the people that are coming together are very like misaligned. Their views on supporting parents, supporting new mums are really different. And actually to their audience, it sends really mixed messages, you know? I've seen that myself, like actually when I've listened to podcasts. You know, I've listened to podcasts from people that I really admire and they've had a guest on the podcast and I've kind of thought, oh my gosh, like what they're saying, I don't agree with, I don't like. And it, although it's not the host saying it, it kind of has that impact of you associating that message with the host. So it definitely can get very messy if we feel like our focus is networking, we've got to connect with as many people, it's time consuming, and it can potentially sometimes be detrimental to the brand image that we're wanting to put out there. Now, of course, I am going to tell you a bit later on how you can do this if you choose to network without having some of those downsides, okay? But I wanted to touch upon those downsides because if you are in the camp of feeling like networking is just not for you, please know that's okay. There are some potential downsides that maybe you are avoiding. Now, what have I done instead? So this podcast is about how, not networking, it's not a problem. There is a different path to success. So whilst I have not networked, and I would consider myself to be quite a lone ranger, what have I done instead? Well, instead, I have doubled down on meeting the needs and building connections with clients and potential clients. So whilst I've not been focusing on I need to connect with this person, I need to get to know that person, I need to be known in the industry by schmoozing with these, I've really focused on the clients I want to attract. I've really focused on my content when it comes to social media, blog content, being about those people rather than pleasing other people in the industry. Because I tell you what, that is one of the potential downsides of networking when we are completely, putting ourselves in spaces where we are just kind of focusing so much. Colleagues, we can sometimes lose sight of who we're actually talking to. And you will see this everywhere, particularly if you work in the birth world. You will see social media content that is loved by other birth workers, but not really appealing to expectant parents. That does not catch the eye of that pregnant woman, and that actually might be too much for them. So whilst I've not focused on networking, I've really focused on my clients, my potential clients, listening to them, being what they need. Where I'm putting my time is there rather than feeling like I need to get to know everyone in the industry. Now, of course, we're not here to talk about extremes like don't do it, don't network. Of course, I do know some people in the industry. I do have people in the industry that do recommend my services, 100%. Where have those connections come from? Well, they've happened really, really genuinely, It's never felt forced. It's never felt like me messaging a ton of people and hoping to get a few responses back. It's happened through real connection, And it's taken time. And actually, rather than me feeling like these are collaborators, I truly and honestly consider these people friends, and it feels genuine and it feels wonderful. So whilst I've never focused on networking, of course, it absolutely can happen organically when people notice what you are about. When people see the wonderful work you are doing from your clients, for your clients, should I say. And that absolutely gets the benefits of networking. But if you are someone like me, where going to a networking event would feel super cringe, it can feel a really easier way of doing it. Now, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, but Abby, maybe I'm not as extreme as you. Maybe, I'm not excited about networking, but I do want to dabble in it. I do want to have a collection of, colleagues around me. I don't want to be such a lone ranger, What can I do to do it a bit, but not have some of the downsides of it? Well, firstly, focus on quality over quantity, Really, if you're not someone who'd go to a networking event, think about, okay, whose stuff on social media am I going to support? And, when people see us supporting them, they're so much more likely to notice us and do the same back. It's like an unwritten rule, isn't it? And also, who knows where it will go? Perhaps it will become that coffee date, Perhaps it will come that genuine connection. And you're doing it without agenda of, let's set up this collaboration. You're doing it because you really feel aligned with that other person's values, So that's absolutely how we can do it in a gentler way and a way that kind of overcomes the time-consumingness of it, the potential misalignment, and the kind of cringy feelings that go with it. And also know that networking, just like many other ways of marketing your baby business, is one of many. And we never have to do them all. We never have to do them all. And actually, if we tried, we'd probably be doing them all not very well, when actually it's better to focus on fewer, but doing them better. So I would love to know what you think of what I've talked about today. I do feel like it may ruffle a few feathers, particularly those people who swear by networking. And I hope you've really received my message loud and clear. I am not saying we shouldn't do it. I'm saying if it's not for you and it feels like it's okay, you can still have success. There's many, many ways of getting it. So that's it for another episode, and I shall see you next time. Do come over to Instagram and let me know your thoughts on this one. Take care and see you soon. Bye. Thank you for listening to Rockabye Revenue. I hope this episode has left you with some fresh ideas and bundles of motivation. If you enjoyed this episode, do make sure you click subscribe so you never miss an installment. And if you found this episode useful, I'd love you forever if you leave a 5-star review, helping this podcast reach the ears of more of the helpers in this world. And remember, keep changing lives. See you next time.